In the previous example, we talked about how because this distribution here was skewed to the right, we showed the skew to the right, that the economists want to talk more about the median than the mean because it was a typical value. Well, here's what we mean by that, and here's why we say that. Um, let's say that there was a mistake in the data, and in particular, this extreme value right here, that 150,250 was actually a mistake. It's actually only supposed to be 50,250, right? So I want to know, how does that affect my previous values, or which values really change and which values really don't change? Well, when we look at this now, we see that this value needs to be rearranged into our data set, and it's going to fit right about here. And so when we go to calculate the mean and the median, let's do the median first. So we'd have one, two, three. Median still sits at the sixth and seventh positions. One, two, three, four, five, six. So it's still going to be that same value that we got, which means that the median is still equal to 47,799. So it still is 47,799. So with that mistake, the median did not change at all. But look at the graph for the new one now. Look at the new graph. Now let's talk about the shape real quick before we continue. So the shape of this graph is fairly symmetric. And we can also verify that there are numbers, because now let's go ahead and calculate the new mean for this data set. And the new mean for this data set, when we figure in that new 50,250, the new mean is going to sit at $48,605.20. So notice the shape of the distribution is now somewhat more symmetric. It's a lot closer. The tails are on both sides. And look at your mean and your median. They're approximately about the same values around each other, around 48,000 of both. So when we look at this now, here's what value we should report. Here's a typical value. Because my distribution is symmetric and because these values are fairly close to each other, I always want to report the mean value when it's symmetric. And that's because, how did we find the mean? Well, we found the mean by adding up all of these values and then dividing by the total. But that means that every value had input or had a contribution towards this particular distribution. The median itself, $47,799, is not even a value in the data set right now. So we don't really want to use it if we don't have to. And we don't have to because we know that these values are fairly close. So for this, the value that you're going to report is going to be the value of the mean. And that's because the distribution is symmetric now. So we're going to say the mean should be used. The distribution is roughly symmetric. And this gets us into what we call a resistant measure and a non-resistant measure. The word resistant in terms of statistics means that a value is heavily affected by change. Or, I'm sorry, it's not affected by change. So when we talk about a resistant measure, in a resistant measure, this means the value, something is resistant, it means it can handle change. So the value is not affected. And by change, we mean outliers. So the value is not affected by outliers. So whether if I have an outlier or I take an outlier away from the data set, it's not going to change. That's what the resistance measure says. And notice here, we took this very big value away from the data set right here, which value did not change at all. My median was still 47,799. The median is the center resistant value. The median is the center resistant value. And we use that value when we have skewed data. We always talk about the median because it's resistant to change. And it's the typical value or the centering value when you have skewed data. The mean, on the other hand, is highly affected by outliers. And notice my mean was $56,839.50 for the original problem. But when I came down here and I took out the $150,000 person and added in just a $50,000 person, look what happened to the mean. It dropped significantly. And that's because it's heavily affected by these large extreme values that we call outliers. So again, remember, when we're talking about which particular center value to use, if the distribution is skewed, we always use the median. If the distribution is symmetric, we want to use the mean.